Hi, welcome to this bonus episode of Lunation Manifestation. I'm Niku.
And I'm Ashley.
Today we're going to be talking about the Mercury Retrograde, which is the first one of the year. It starts on January 30th and ends on February 20th. We've already entered the shadow period. That started on January 15th, and then the shadow period ends on March 13th.
So, what sort of things can we expect to experience during this Mercury retrograde?
In order to understand what Mercury retrograde chaos can be, it's really important to understand what energy Mercury rules. So Mercury is the planet of communication. It's the planet of electronics, contractual agreements, neighborhood. So like short distance travel, meaning from here to the grocery store, from home to work, just basically daily commutes. Um, Mercury is one of the its energy is very airy. I apologize. Its energy is very airy, and so when Mercury goes retrograde, the areas of our life that tend to become chaotic are the ones that I just mentioned. Basically, anything that results in fogginess of mind, which is why during a Mercury retrograde, it's really important to double check that you sent that email. Several times today at work, I went back to my emails and realized I hit send, but it somehow did not go through, of
Right.
course. Also, what's important to understand is that Mercury is retrograding through Aquarius. Aquarius is like the planet of humanitarianness. Aquarius is the planet of like future, of the collective. And so, especially now, you'll notice a lot of delays electronically, internet wise. Um, uh, yeah, basically anything that has to do with like electronics or the internet or anything that seems like, futuristic, because it is transiting through Aquarius. Uh, the reason why some of these details are best avoided, like for instance, it's best to avoid signing any sort of contract during a Mercury retrograde. Now, granted, we can't avoid certain things. The point is, you want to take extra time to try to sift through a contract to make sure that whatever you're signing is that you're aligned with it and that you're not missing some pieces, because then you're going to be locked into that agreement. Same thing with travel. You want to make sure you're not distracted by your phone, by your thoughts. Whenever you're commuting, even if it's by walking, if you're in a commuter city like I am, being unfocused, first off, the collective is unfocused, so that's why it's a lot easier to end up in accidents. Somebody's like, you know texting while driving, or somebody's texting while walking, not looking both ways, forgetting the smaller details. It's really important to like set yourself reminders. I have multiple calendars. I have a dry erase calendar above my desk. I have a planner, and I have my work calendar and my personal, like Google Calendar, for instance, so that I know what I can look to in order to remember that I have to keep up with whatever daily tasks I have, especially with work, because work is my livelihood. I have to make sure that I keep up with it. And I know that it's not just me that's like slipping, the collective is slipping. And so, especially in my role, for instance, I know that in my role, sometimes if I'm not on top of everyone, things do not move forward. And I really just want to stay in bed too. But things have to move forward, So those are the things that you really should be aware of during a Mercury retrograde, or what could be what things to look out for during a Mercury retrograde, or to be aware of. I know it doesn't like stop things from happening, but I know that knowing it helps me feel better about what I'm going through.
Right. So, from a mental health perspective, as you said, just that awareness and practicing consistent mindfulness throughout your day can make all the difference of these little inconveniences that come up, paying
Mhm.
attention and focusing and, taking the time to just breathe through it. And, when these little hiccups come up, just say, nah, Mercury retrograde kind of thing, rather than getting all frustrated and, entangled with your emotions. Now's the time to pay attention, be mindful, and just let the little stuff go and just keep moving forward.
Oh, for sure. Especially this morning, I woke up like on the slightly wrong side of the bed and I just was like groggy. My mind was kind of foggy and I was just like, whatever, just get your day going. Then, I pack up and I go to my office. Now, I don't often go to my office. Obviously, we're dealing with a global pandemic, but one of the producers on a show that we're working on was getting his internet shut off in his building because whatever, it was just a scheduled maintenance, of course, right? Go figure. So he's just a freelancer, he doesn't have access to our building. I had to, I went in to be, helpful and um, swipe him in. On the train ride to work, I go, oh no, I forgot my badge. And I almost start panicking, and I'm like, I already have text messages, like text threads going with my siblings and then also with one of my colleagues, and I'm just like, oh my god, I forgot it. And that, like, I left just enough time to make sure I get there in time, and I'm halfway to work. There's no way I can get off now, make it back, and then back in time for me to meet up with my colleague. And so one of my colleagues, another person who works full-time as I do in my company, was like, Nico, let go of the negativity because you're going to spiral. And I said, okay, thank you. I gave myself a couple of breaths and then I emailed the building. I was like, the last time I locked myself out of my work building was the last Mercury retrograde. I left my badge in the office, went on my lunch break, came back, and I was like, oh, I have a meeting in 10 minutes and I'm locked out. Oh my God. Anyway, the point is we become forgetful. We're distracted by a lot of things that are going on. We're a little bit foggier. And especially like my key fob, like my badge, is an electronic thing. Like this is of course something I would forget. I'm forgetful because of Mercury, and then also something that has to do with electronics to get me into a building. I mean, into the office. I
And
forgot
also
at
your
home.
commute and being on time.
My
Kind of
goodness,
all of it all in one.
all of it all at once, and like I actually got there on time, but couldn't get into it. Thankfully, the building responded really quickly. I've done this before, so they know me.
Breeze again.
But some ways that you can really prepare yourself are, like last night when I was getting ready, I like set my clothes to the side and I was like, all right, I'll be fine. I forgot to even, like in my checks and balances, forgot to even think about my badge. So I
Right.
literally got home from work today because the building let me in, which is usually like a catastrophe, but for some reason that my angels were watching over me, and I got in. And then so when I finally got home, I immediately pulled it out and I was like, let that be in your line of sight so that you can pack it tonight and there's no issue tomorrow, because apparently he has more scheduled um, maintenance. Also, I live in Brooklyn and I found out that Verizon is randomly, like, something went down with Verizon internet. So I was grateful that I went into the office because I would have been without internet. And we have a huge project that's going on right now. So that would have been a huge catastrophe. Um, so of course, another like something that thankfully I dodged that bullet. But internet going down during the Mercury retrograde. Oh, I would have had to work off of like tethering from my phone. Oh, awful internet.
Yep. So any little lists for yourself or notes that you can leave and kind of preparing yourself for just being prepared.
For sure. Have enough water because water will definitely clear your mind if you're hydrated. Get enough sleep. Do not One thing that and everyone's charts are different, so everyone might be affected differently by retrogrades. The Mercury retrograde in particular, I only say in particular because it's the one we're talking about. um for instance, I don't make plans. I don't make social plans because Mercury is also a social planet. I know that I'm going to end up probably spending more than I want to spend, end up going into my rent money or something. I know that when I'm out and being social, I'm less focused on what some of the detriments could be if I overspend or if I don't get enough rest or if I have that one drink more. Granted, I'm not really going out anywhere, but I did have a friend who invited me for cocktails last Friday at, an outside bar, which in the winter in New York, who wants to be outside?
Mhm. Yeah.
Anyway, Anyway, I ended up canceling because I was exhausted and I listened to my body. So just listen to your body. If you're feeling tired, go to bed, take a break, rest, exercise if you are a regular exerciser, meditate, anything to really enhance your cognitive abilities, because again, Mercury is all about cognition, and so that's why these other areas tend to fail during this time, is because Mercury is like in a fog, and the things that it rules, like the mind, is in a fog. Another thing that happens with Mercury retrogrades is that we get a little bit nostalgic about our past. We start thinking about people who are no longer in our present lives. A lot of times, some exes tend to pop back up, which is totally normal, or sometimes you might be the one reaching back out. Um,
Yep,
you know,
don't do that.
I mean, yeah, don't do that. I mean, do what feels right. No, no, don't do it. No, but I just think that um, you know, sometimes we have a little less self-control, especially if we've been drinking or smoking or whatever it might be, just like in our feelings, especially if there's some other planetary transits that are like really affecting us during the Mercury retrograde. We might lose a little bit of our self-control or like our strength, right? That is okay. If you slip up and reach out to somebody, or even if somebody reaches out to you, be forgiving. I'm not saying you have to answer that person. I'm not saying that they have to answer you, but if they don't answer you and you're the one who reaches out, be forgiving to yourself. Don't be mad at yourself for having done it. Understand that like Mercury retrograde is a difficult time for everyone. Um and so just be really easy on yourself in general during this time. And then alternatively, if somebody reaches out to you that you don't necessarily want to hear from, you don't have to reach out to them and be negative. What you can do is just ignore them and try your best to like let it go. Forgive it for your own mental well-being, for your own well-being. Because you carry, like, if you're mad at somebody, or if you have like the burden of being upset or something, it's not like the other person's feeling it. It's only you that are experiencing that negative emotion. So just be kind to yourself. Everybody's human, and when you look at a next lover or next partner, or somebody, an ex friend, for instance, when they reach back out, or when they reach out to you during this time, um and I'm not saying that they will, but there's a stronger possibility for it to happen, because people do become a little bit more nostalgic, and they regret some of the things that they've done, or they start another thing with the Mercury retrograde is not just fogginess, but also like obsessive thinking. So you might like start coming over some past decisions or past behaviors that you've done, and like want to relive it in your mind. What do you think about that, Ashley? What are some tips for you to overcome that, or to be kind to yourself? Like, as a mindful coach, what are some things that you think people could use in order to cope?
Right. So, like you said, it's a perfect time to be gentle with yourself and other people, right? And as we have these old experiences coming in and reminding us of some difficult times of the past and whatnot, like now is a great time to accept it and release it. Like if we just ignore these issues and continue to repress them, then we never find the healing that we need in order to move forward. So if you do notice some of these feelings or stuff coming up from the past, take this time maybe to do some writing and reflecting on why I feel this way, what happened, and what can I control, and what can I do moving forward. So
That's really good advice.
great time to reflect and be
I
easy with yourself, like you
For
said.
sure. For sure, because we're already going to be doing those things, right? Reflecting. So be kind to yourself in those moments.
Yeah.
Another thing to know is, like I told you the dates, it's only 3 weeks this time around. Sometimes it can be up to as long as 5 weeks. I don't know if I've ever experienced a 6 week one, but this is one of the shorter ones. So it's not that long that we're going to have to endure this challenging time. Um, and it's okay. We deal with it 3 times a year, right? We always get through them. So just
What do you
remind
think
yourself.
some of the, benefits of a Mercury retrograde are. Like everyone is so focused on, oh my God, Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
So like what's the good for you in terms of Mercury
Oh,
retrograde?
for sure. So I'm going to tell you, I've been following planetary alignments for a very long time. I don't know, like maybe 15 years. And only like in the last 7 years have I really, really dove deeper into it. And only in the last like 3 years have I really kept a journal over it to really understand what they're like. And I'll say, when I give you advice and tell you, stay in if you can, be on your own and be reflective if you can, take your time to sleep. I find that during Mercury retrogrades, it's sometimes some of my most creative times. I have a lot of like personal hobbies. So this is a time where I'm always like, I'm forced to slow down. I'm gonna flow. And when I flow, I enter creative mindset way quicker. And all of a sudden I'm like, bam, I created this, bam, I created that. Now, obviously, I just mentioned I had some frustrations today. We're gonna deal with those things. We have regular life to deal with. I can't just stop working for 3 weeks and like not and like not have my life. But what I can control about my schedule is what I do with my social time. And I'm choosing to work on, for instance, this podcast, this video blog, whatever this is called, lunation manifestation, I should say. I'm taking the time to work on lunation manifestation as well as some other projects, which I'll be announcing later on when they're coming closer to the fruition. Um, but I really like to take this time to really work on. I like to take this time to really put my time and energy into my creative endeavors. I tend to flow a lot better when I slow down. And as a fire, sun, and moon, and an air Venus that's trine Mars. I'm kidding. I'll stop. I really like to try to slow down because as a fire, sun, and moon, I am go, 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 go. I love to go. So
It's true. You
as
do.
so as I've gotten older and experienced life, gotten wiser, whatever, I've learned to actually embrace when things go retrograde. Not as much as I've ever that Mars retrograde at the end of last year was such a challenge because it was transiting Aries, which is my sun sign. It's also where my Mercury is. I've never had more difficulty expressing myself and also having to deal with patience in my entire life. But man, oh man, did I learn a lot because I was forced to slow down. I was like, well, I can be frustrated or I can read. And so I learned a shit ton of things that I'm interested in. So I've learned a lot of things that I'm interested in. And I feel a lot better versed in some of the other hobbies that I have. And I feel like at the end of this year, I'm going to have a couple of my projects come to fruition. Sorry. Anyway, so with retrogrades, and in this case, the Mercury retrograde, it's a forced slowdown, which I embrace because it allows me to get into flow state, which helps my creativity, which I really benefit from and enjoy. So people are always like, oh, it's all these like you're like on standby and you're forced to slow down and it's frustrating and you forgot this and you got into an accident and you forgot to send a check and you forgot this and whatever it might be. Yes, it's stressful. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that if you with some of the things that you can control, like your time, you can maybe just have some more inward time and be more with yourself, learn some meditation or do some things that you feel comfortable doing by yourself, because you end up learning a lot more about yourself. And also you will learn, you build a I've built a um, patience. I've built resilience. I pat myself on the shoulder from being able to be like, do not text him. Which girl,
I'm proud,
was that?
so I'm proud of you.
Thank you, thank you.
So Mercury retrograde doesn't have to be this thing that you're terrified of. And while there are a lot of inconveniences that may arise, it's important to just remember, relax, stay mindful, go with the flow, and just be gentle with yourself.
Thanks again for joining us on this bonus episode of Lunation Manifestation. We're your hosts, Niku.
And Ashlee,
We'll catch you in a couple weeks for the New Moon in Aquarius episode. Check you then.
thank you. Love you.